American wakes, funerals, and the accompanying procedures and rituals often cost more than a year's worth of pay. That's because the grief of surviving family members is exploited. More so, the vast majority view death with trepidation, consciously or subconsciously, including the devoutly religious, whether they admit it or not. That's largely because people find the concept of conscious existence outside the physical body hard to grasp, hence the elaborate preservation of bodies. Consider the desperate attempt of ancient Egyptians to preserve bodies permanently and at all costs. That was as long as the deceased or surviving family had the riches to afford it. Otherwise, they did without. Also, today's cryonics, the process of freezing dead bodies to be thawed out centuries later for attempted reanimation, when modern medicine and technology haven't supposedly advanced enough to accomplish this. The funeral industry preys upon the previously mentioned grief and uncertainty for profit. Consider the process of embalming. It was popularized after President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, as government paraded his body around the country to showcase his heroic sacrifice. Embalming was necessary for that purpose, but highly unnecessary otherwise. For this exceedingly expensive procedure, the jaw is wired shut and eyes sealed with glue. The abdomen is punctured and the internal organs pulled out the whole and disposed of. Then they drain all the blood, pump the arteries and veins full of formaldehyde and other chemicals, and stuff the internal cavities with cotton. Though funeral directors tell their grieving customers that embalming is necessary if you want an open casket, that's false. Refrigeration is far cheaper and just as effective. From there, the corpse is dressed, caked with makeup, and placed in a coffin, almost always from the funeral home, with a 500+% markup. That is charging 5+ times the amount that coffins you can buy online cost. The funeral home also pushes its floral tribute, yet you can purchase flowers and decorations which are just as nice from a florist for a fraction of the cost, or supply flowers from your garden. Then a funeral home selected official does the eulogy at an inflated price. After the wake, the corpse is treated to an expensive limousine ride in a so-called hearse, which it is completely unaware of. Then after a generic eulogy, the body is lowered into a hole which was excavated at a highly inflated price. You also pay far more for a gravestone than its inherent worth. In fact, everything in the entire process is marked up from 500 to 1,000%, as people are vulnerable to being taken advantage of, considering their emotions surrounding this issue. Sadly, all that money could have gone to charity for poor and suffering people and animals instead. See the website change.org. In addition, this causes another major category of problems. That is environmental impact from traditional death care practices, which presents a significant sustainability crisis. An obvious issue is that expanding graveyards increasingly take away land from the use of living people, animals, and plant life. With the ever-increasing human population, both living and dead, this will become completely unsustainable. Here are hidden issues. Enough steel is wasted in buried caskets in just 1 year to rebuild the colossal and magnificent Golden Gate Bridge, which spans between San Francisco Bay and the Pacific Ocean. And every year, enough formaldehyde and other embalming fluids and preservatives are used that they could fill multiple Olympic-sized swimming pools. These carcinogenic, toxic, and non-biodegradable substances sometimes leak into and pollute land and water. So less expensive and more eco-friendly alternatives exist. For example, flame cremation, Also, aquamation or alkaline hydrolysis, water cremation. In Japan, over 99% of people are cremated. However, every year, flame cremation uses enough fuel to drive to Mars. And though less expensive, it's still expensive. Aquamation solves the fuel problem, but costs more than flame cremation. Additional cremation costs arise when ashes are kept in crypts or mausoleums. Other products and practices are also less expensive and leave a lighter impact on our environment, such as traditional wakes or funerals, which forego embalming, so-called green burial, which uses shrouds or eco-caskets instead, being recomposed, that's introducing bodily remains back into the soil, and more. However, they're still expensive, and if you have a tombstone, gravesite, or similar memorial, this still deprives the living of land. So my solutions would be either to have no provisions whatsoever and let your local officials deal with it, or donate all or part of your body to science and or medicine. Death is a confronting reality for most. Consequently, open conversations about our final wishes are rare. So we must fight against this tendency and clearly document our wishes beforehand when we're not overwhelmed by emotions in such time of crisis. As for the resurrection of the physical body, God can accomplish that regardless of human effort, even if all remains were completely atomized. So our ethical choice must be to not waste money nor damage our ecosystem with idiotic ideas, no matter how foolishly popular. Our choices can either burden or nourish Mother Earth and sentient beings for future generations. Never give in to peer pressure. So today, pledge to leave the best possible outcome in your inevitable death procedure. To bolster and solidify this concept in your mind, I recommend doing your own research. You may also want to have a candid conversation with someone you love about your end-of-life wishes. Regardless, following up with legal documentation is required, and it would be a virtuous act for those who will carry such wishes out. The more conscious we are in end-of-life planning, the more meaningfully we can transform the landscape from a toxic death space to a sustainable and fruitful life space. This is our responsibility. Opposing all forms of the death culture must start with us, then radiate outward by our vocalization and example. To be logically aware and unselfish requires effort to be independent over and above society's common miasma. This is true not only for this topic, but for every aspect of life.